The massive crystal towers of Zephyria Prime sang with sadness as their dying star pulsed weakly in the orange sky. Elder Kythera pressed her transparent hand against the observation deck's cool surface, watching the star that had given life to her people for thousands of years slowly fade away. "How much time do we have left?" she asked, though she already knew the answer would bring no comfort. Scientist Velthara's crystal body flickered with dim blue light as he spoke in the musical tones of their language. "The star will collapse completely in 43 days, maybe less. The radiation storms are getting stronger every hour." Kythera closed her eyes and felt the harmonic vibrations of 12 billion Zephyrians across their world. Fear, sadness, and desperate hope mixed together in the planet-wide song that connected all of their minds. Mothers held their young close. Elders shared final wisdom. Everyone knew their time was running out. The Zephyrians had always been a peaceful race. Their bodies were made of living crystal that could bend light and create beautiful colors. They communicated through musical harmonies that could travel great distances. For generations, they had lived in balance with their world, never taking more than they needed, always giving back to the planet that sustained them. But now their star was dying, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The evacuation. "Ships?" Kythera asked, though she knew this answer too. "We have completed construction of 47 vessels," Velthara replied, his voice heavy with sorrow. "Each can carry approximately 25,000 individuals. That means we can save just over 1 million of our people. 1 million out of 12 billion. The numbers were too terrible to think about, but Kythera forced herself to face the reality. They would have to choose who lived and who died. The young would go first, of course, then the scientists and artists who could preserve their culture. But so many would be left behind. "Have we received any response to our distress signals?" she asked. Velthara's light dimmed further. "Nothing. We have broadcast our plea in every language we know, on every frequency we can reach, but we are so far from other star systems. Even if someone wanted to help us, they could never arrive in time." The Zephyrians had discovered space travel only recently. Their ships could move between planets in their own system, but traveling to other stars would take hundreds of years. They knew other intelligent life existed somewhere among the countless stars, but they had never made contact with anyone. Now, as their world faced destruction, they were truly alone. Kythera walked through the crystal corridors of the Great Tower, past chambers where families gathered to share their final weeks together. Children played games while their parents watched with tears in their eyes. Artists created last works of beauty to send with the evacuation ships. Scientists worked desperately on impossible solutions that everyone knew would not come in time. She reached the Grand Harmony Chamber, where representatives from every city on the planet had gathered. The chamber was filled with thousands of Zephyrians, their crystal bodies creating a rainbow of soft light in the vast space. As Kythera entered, they all turned toward her with hope in their musical voices. "My people," she began, her words carrying across the chamber and broadcast to every corner of their world. "We have done everything we can. Our ships are ready. Our message has been sent to the stars. Now we must choose who will carry our civilization forward." The harmony that rose from the assembled crowd was heartbreaking in its beauty. It spoke of love for their children, acceptance of their fate, and hope that somewhere among the stars someone might remember them. "Let us not spend our final days in despair," Kythera continued. "Let us celebrate what we have been. Let us create something beautiful to send with those who will survive. Let us show the universe what the Zephyrians were capable of when we face the end with dignity." Over the following days, the entire planet became a massive art project. Every Zephyrian contributed to a final song that would be recorded and sent with the evacuation ships. The harmony grew and evolved as billions of voices added their part to the composition. It told the story of their people, their hopes and dreams, their love for their world and each other. Scientists worked around the clock to compress their entire knowledge into data storage that could fit on the ships. Historians recorded everything they could about their culture and civilization. Parents recorded messages for the children who would grow up among the stars without ever seeing Zephyria Prime. As the days passed, the dying star grew more unstable. Solar flares reached out toward their planet like grasping fingers. The temperature began to rise as their atmosphere absorbed more radiation. Soon, their world would become uninhabitable even before the star's final explosion. On the 38th day, Kythera stood once more in the observation chamber. The evacuation ships hung in orbit like tiny jewels against the dark of space. Tomorrow they would launch and carry 1 million survivors toward the nearest potentially habitable system, a journey that would take them many years to complete. She pressed her hand to the crystal wall and whispered a final prayer into the harmony that connected all Zephyrians. If anyone is listening among the stars, remember us. Remember that we tried to be worthy of the gift of life. The message traveled outward into space at the speed of light, carrying the hopes of a dying world toward whatever civilizations might exist in the vast darkness between the stars. Captain Lee Min-ho stared at the display screen in disbelief as the alien message played for the third time. The translation software was still working to decode the musical language, but the mathematical formulas were clear enough. 12 billion lives hung in the balance, and humanity had just received its first contact with another intelligent species. Sir, the signal originated from a system 847 light-years away, reported Communications Officer Bae Soo-jin, her voice tight with emotion. According to their data, their star will collapse in less than 6 weeks. Min-ho rubbed his tired eyes. He had been awake for 18 hours straight since the message first arrived at Earth's deep space monitoring station. The implications were staggering. Not only had humanity discovered they were not alone in the universe, but their first alien neighbors were facing extinction. Have you calculated travel time using our fastest ships? Min-ho asked, though he suspected the answer would crush any hope of rescue. Chief Navigator Park Hyun-woo looked up from his calculations with a grim expression. Using conventional engines, our fastest vessels would take 37 years to reach them. Even with our newest fusion drives, we're looking at 22 years minimum. The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of electronic systems. 22 years to travel to a star system that would be nothing but cold space and debris in 6 weeks? It was impossible. What about the experimental jump drive? Min-ho asked quietly. Every officer on the bridge turned to look at him. The experimental faster-than-light drive had been in development for 3 years, but it had never been tested on anything larger than an unmanned probe. The technology was dangerous, unpredictable, and potentially fatal to any crew that attempted to use it. Dr. Kim Ha-yoon, the project's lead scientist, had been called to the emergency meeting via video link from the research station orbiting Mars. Her image flickered on the main screen as she reviewed the data they had sent her. Captain, the theoretical calculations suggest that the jump drive could reduce travel time to approximately 4 weeks, she said carefully. However, the power requirements would push our systems far beyond safe operating limits. The probability of successful completion is roughly 40%. 40%? Admiral Park Soo-jin's voice crackled through the communication system from Earth Command. Captain Min-ho, you're suggesting a suicide mission to save aliens we've never met. Min-ho looked around the bridge at his crew. These were good people, experienced officers who had signed up to explore space and push the boundaries of human knowledge. None of them had expected to face a decision like this. With respect, Admiral, Min-ho replied. We're talking about 12 billion intelligent beings. If we don't try, they all die. If we do try and fail, at least we'll have attempted something that matters. The debate that followed was intense but brief. Earth Command was reluctant to risk valuable ships and crews on what seemed like an impossible mission. The politicians wanted more time to study the situation. The military leaders worried about the precedent of rushing into dangerous situations without proper planning. But something had changed in the officers and crew who had heard the alien message. The musical harmonies of the Zephyrians had been beautiful and heartbreaking, even through the translation software. Their mathematical descriptions of their science and culture showed a peaceful, advanced civilization that had never harmed anyone. Engineer. Yoon Ji-ho was the first to volunteer. I've worked on the jump drive project since the beginning, he said simply. If anyone can keep it running long enough to get us there, it's me. Dr. Kim Ha-yoon surprised everyone by requesting immediate transfer to Minho's ship. The Zephyrian data contains scientific principles I've never seen before, she explained. Their harmonic mathematics could revolutionize our understanding of physics, but more importantly, they need help, and I have the knowledge that might save them. One by one, other ships began volunteering for the mission. The crews had families on Earth, comfortable lives, promising careers, but they also had something that made them human: the inability to ignore suffering when they had the power to help. Within 24 hours, 12 ships had assembled for the mission. They carried the best scientists, engineers, and medical personnel that humanity could provide. The cargo holds were packed with supplies, equipment, and everything they might need for a rescue operation unlike anything in human history. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of his ship as Earth fell away behind them. The experimental jump drive hummed with barely contained energy, ready to tear holes in space-time itself. The odds of survival were poor, and even if they succeeded in reaching the alien system, they had no idea how to actually save 12 billion lives. All ships report ready for jump, Bae Soo-jin announced. Minho took a deep breath and thought about the message they had received. The Zephyrians had not asked for rescue. They had simply wanted someone to remember them after they were gone. But humanity had heard their plea and decided that remembering was not enough. Execute jump sequence, Minho ordered. The stars stretched into lines of light, and 12 human ships disappeared into the impossible space between dimensions, racing against time to prove that in the vast loneliness of the universe, no one had to face extinction alone. Behind them, Earth continued its ancient orbit around the sun, unaware that its children had just taken their first step toward becoming something greater than they had ever imagined. The human fleet materialized, in Zephyrian space with hulls glowing red-hot and engines sputtering. Captain Minho gripped his command chair as emergency alarms wailed throughout the ship. The experimental jump drive had pushed their technology beyond its limits, but they had crossed 800 light-years in just over 3 weeks. Damage report, Minho called out as sparks flew from overloaded control panels. Hull integrity at 60%, reported engineer Yoon Ji-ho, sweat dripping down his face. Jump drive is completely burned out. We're not going anywhere fast, but we made it. Through the main viewing screen, they could see Zephyria Prime hanging like a crystal jewel against the dark of space. But the dying star behind it pulsed with angry orange light, sending waves of deadly radiation across the system. Captain, we're receiving a transmission, announced Communications Officer Bae Soo-jin. It's beautiful. The bridge filled with harmonic music unlike anything the EO humans had ever heard. The alien voices created complex melodies that seemed to touch something deep in their hearts, even before the translation software began working. Elder Kythera's voice came through clearly. Beings of the distant stars, we cannot believe what our sensors tell us. You have traveled impossible distances to reach us. Why would strangers risk so much for people they have never met? Minho stepped forward, speaking into the communication system. Because that's what we do. When someone needs help, we help. That's what makes us human. The response from the planet was a harmony of pure joy mixed with disbelief. For the first time in weeks, the Zephyrians dared to hope. Dr. Kim Ha-yoon worked frantically with her team to establish proper communication protocols. The Zephyrian language was incredibly complex, using musical tones and mathematical relationships that challenged every translation system they had. But slowly, understanding began to grow between the two species. Their science is amazing, Dr. Kim reported to Minho. They use harmonic crystals to manipulate energy in ways we never imagined. But Captain, the situation is worse than we thought. Their star is becoming unstable faster than anyone predicted. We have maybe 5 weeks before it explodes. Engineer Yoon Ji-ho shuttled down to the planet's surface to work directly with Zephyrian scientists. The crystal cities were breathtaking, with towers that sang in the wind and streets that glowed with soft natural light. But underneath the beauty, he could feel the desperation of a dying world. The Zephyrian scientist Velthara met him at the main research facility. Through the translation device, their conversation was halting but filled with urgent purpose. "Your fusion technology is powerful," Velthara explained, his crystal body flickering with excited colors. "Our harmonic crystals can amplify energy fields. Perhaps together we can create shields strong enough to protect evacuation ships from the star's radiation." Jiho studied the Zephyrian equipment with wonder. The crystals seemed to respond to sound waves, growing brighter and more powerful when exposed to the right harmonic frequencies. It was like nothing in human science, but the principles were surprisingly similar to their own energy manipulation techniques. "If we combine your crystal amplification with our fusion cores," Jiho said thoughtfully, "we might be able to create a temporary shield around the entire planet. It won't stop the star from exploding, but it could buy us time to evacuate everyone." Working together, human engineers and Zephyrian scientists began the most desperate construction project in either species' history. They built massive fusion generators powered by harmonic crystals, creating energy shields that could deflect stellar radiation. The work was dangerous, requiring both species to share their most advanced secrets and trust each other completely. Dr. Kim Ha-yoon spent her time learning Zephyrian mathematics and physics. Their understanding of space and time was far more advanced than humanity's, using harmonic equations that described reality in terms of musical relationships. The knowledge was revolutionary, but there was no time to fully understand it. "Captain," she reported during one of their daily briefings, "the Zephyrians have been working on something they call harmonic space folding. It's theoretical, but if we could make it work with our jump drive technology, could we move their entire planet?" Minho asked. "It's impossible," Dr. Kim replied. "The energy requirements would be enormous. We'd need to create a space-time bubble around their whole world and transport it to a new star system. No one has ever attempted anything like it." But as the days passed and the star grew more unstable, impossible began to look like their only option. The Zephyrian evacuation ships could save 1 million people, but 11 billion would still die when the star exploded. The human ships could maybe take another 100,000, but it wasn't nearly enough. "We need a miracle," Minho said quietly, as he watched the dying star pulse through his cabin window. On the planet below, engineer Jiho and scientist Velthara worked side by side, human technology merging with Zephyrian harmonic science in ways that neither species had imagined possible. The fusion crystal hybrid generators were producing energy levels that broke every safety protocol both civilizations had ever established. "The harmonic resonance is building," Velthara reported, his crystal body glowing brighter than Jiho had ever seen. "If we can synchronize it with your space-time manipulation technology." Jiho looked at the readings and felt his heart skip. The energy patterns looked exactly like the signatures Dr. Kim had described from her theoretical work on planetary transportation. It was still impossible, but for the first time since arriving in the system, he began to believe they might actually save everyone. The star pulsed again, sending another wave of deadly radiation across the system. Time was running out, but two species working together had created something neither could have achieved alone. The dying star began its final death throes as Captain Minho stood in the control center they had built on Zephyria Prime. Around him, human engineers and Zephyrian scientists worked together at stations that glowed with both electric lights and harmonic crystals. The energy readings on every screen showed numbers that should have been impossible. "The fusion crystal generators are at maximum output," engineer Yoon Jiho reported, his voice tight with concentration. "We're producing more energy than our ships and their entire civilization combined have ever generated before." Dr. Kim Ha-yoon looked up from her calculations, her face pale but determined. "The harmonic spacetime equations are holding stable. We can create a bubble around the entire planet, but the energy required to move it to a new star system..." She shook her head. "We'll be pushing physics beyond anything either of our species has ever attempted." Through the crystal windows, they could see the star pulsing with angry red light. Solar flares reached out like grasping fingers, and the radiation levels were climbing every hour. Soon, even their shields would not be enough to protect the planet's surface. Elder Cathara entered the control center, her crystal body flickering with nervous energy. "Captain Minho, Our people are ready. The entire population is gathered in the harmonic amplification chambers. 12 billion voices will add their resonance to your technology. Minho felt a chill run down his spine. The plan they had developed was insane by any reasonable measure. They were going to attempt something that civilizations thousands of years more advanced had never dreamed possible, moving an entire planet through folded space-time to a new star system. "Are you certain this will work?" Kithra asked quietly. "No," Minho replied honestly, "but it's the only chance we have to save everyone." The Zephyrian scientist Velthara approached them, his harmonic voice trembling with emotion. "Captain, we have never asked another species to risk so much for us. If this fails, your people will die alongside ours." "Then we better make sure it doesn't fail," Minho said simply. Jiho called out from his station. "All fusion generators are synchronized. The harmonic crystals are resonating at perfect frequency. We're ready to begin the space-time fold." Dr. Kim took her position at the main control console. The interface was a mixture of human technology and Zephyrian harmonic manipulation devices. Her hands moved across both keyboard and crystal surfaces as she prepared to attempt something that existed only in theoretical mathematics. "Beginning preliminary fold," she announced. The air around them began to shimmer. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist as massive energies built up around the planet. The harmonic resonance of 12 billion Zephyrian voices joined with the power of human fusion technology, creating a symphony of science that neither species could have achieved alone. "Space-time distortion field is stable," Dr. Kim reported. "Energy levels are holding within acceptable parameters. Beginning primary fold sequence." Minho watched the readings climb beyond anything their instruments were designed to measure. The fusion cores were running at temperatures that should have melted their containment systems, but the Zephyrian crystals somehow kept everything stable through harmonic resonance. "Captain," Communications Officer Bei Su Jin called out urgently, "the star is beginning final collapse. We have maybe 10 minutes before it goes supernova." "How long do we need for the fold?" Minho asked. 15 minutes minimum," Dr. Kim replied, sweat beading on her forehead as she worked the controls. "The calculations are incredibly complex. We're essentially creating a pocket universe around the entire planet." Jiho looked up from his engineering station. "I can push the fusion cores beyond safe limits. It might give us the extra power we need to speed up the process." "Do it," Minho ordered. The energy levels spiked dramatically. Warning alarms began blaring as systems throughout the control center registered dangerous overloads. But the space-time fold continued to build, wrapping around Zephyria Prime like an invisible shell. "The harmonic resonance is perfect," Velthara reported with wonder in his voice. "Our people's voices are merging with your technology in ways our scientists never imagined. It's as if the universe itself wants this to succeed." Through the windows they could see space beginning to bend around them. Stars stretched into lines of light as reality warped under the massive energies they were generating. The dying star behind them pulsed one final time, then began its catastrophic collapse. "Fold completion at 90%, Dr. Kim announced. "Initiating dimensional transition in 3, 2, 1. The universe exploded into light around them. Minho felt every atom in his body stretching across impossible distances as Zephyria Prime slipped between dimensions. The harmonic voices of 12 billion Zephyrians rose to a crescendo that seemed to make the very fabric of space-time sing. For a moment that lasted forever, they existed everywhere and nowhere, sliding through folded reality toward a new home among the stars. Minho felt the enormous strain of the energies flowing through their systems through his own body, as human and Zephyrian technology merged to accomplish the impossible. Then, suddenly, there was silence. Through the crystal windows, they could see a young, bright star shining down on Zephyria Prime. The planet had emerged from its impossible journey into orbit around a stable sun that would burn for billions of years. The energy readings on their instruments slowly returned to normal levels as the space-time fold collapsed behind them. "We did it," Dr. Kim whispered, hardly daring to believe it. Outside, 12 billion Zephyrian voices rose in a harmony of pure joy that could be heard across the entire planet. They had been saved not just from extinction, but transported to a new home where their civilization could flourish for generations to come. Minho collapsed into his chair, exhausted, but smiling. They had achieved something that should have been impossible, proving that when different species worked together, they could accomplish miracles that neither could achieve alone. 6 months after the impossible rescue, Zephyria Prime bloomed with new life under its young, stable star. The crystal cities hummed with harmonies of joy instead of despair, and the planet's surface sparkled with colors that had been dim during the final days under their dying sun. Engineer Yoon Ji-ho walked through the streets of New Harmony, the first city built jointly by humans and Zephyrians. The buildings were unlike anything either species had created alone. Human metal and glass structures intertwined with Zephyrian crystal towers, creating architecture that sang in the wind while housing the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Beside him walked Velthara, the Zephyrian scientist who had become his closest friend during the desperate weeks of the rescue mission. Their unlikely partnership had grown into something deeper than professional cooperation. They had learned to understand each other's ways of thinking, human logic blending with Zephyrian harmonic intuition. "The new ships are almost ready," Velthara said, his crystal body flickering with excited colors as they approached the spaceport. "Your fusion drive technology combined with our harmonic manipulation creates vessels faster than anything either of our species built before." Ji-ho smiled as he looked at the sleek ships waiting on the launch pads. They were beautiful, with hulls that curved like musical instruments and engines that hummed with perfectly balanced energy. The joint human Zephyrian crews had been training for months to operate these revolutionary vessels. "Where will we go first?" Ji-ho asked. "Captain, Minho suggests the Andromeda signals," Velthara replied. "Our long-range sensors have detected what might be distress calls from 3 different systems. If other civilizations need help, then we'll be there," Ji-ho finished. It had become the unofficial motto of their joint fleet. When someone needed help, they would be there. In the University District of New Harmony, Dr. Kim Ha-yoon taught a class of both human and Zephyrian students. The lecture hall was filled with young minds eager to understand the science that had made their salvation possible. Dr. Kim stood before a massive holographic display showing space-time equations that mixed human mathematics with Zephyrian harmonic theory. The key breakthrough, she explained to her fascinated audience, was realizing that reality itself has a harmonic structure. When we combined human energy manipulation with Zephyrian resonance control, we didn't just create new technology. We learned to work with the fundamental music of the universe. A young Zephyrian student raised a crystalline hand. "Professor Kim, is it true that we could use this knowledge to help other dying worlds?" "Not just dying worlds," Dr. Kim replied with a smile. "We could potentially move entire solar systems, create stable wormholes for instant travel, or even repair damaged space-time itself. The possibilities are endless when 2 different ways of thinking work together." The human students looked just as amazed as their Zephyrian classmates. In 6 months, the sharing of knowledge between the 2 species had advanced both civilizations by centuries. Human medicine had been revolutionized by Zephyrian harmonic healing techniques. Zephyrian space travel had been transformed by human engineering principles. In the Grand Harmony Chamber, Elder Kythera prepared for her daily broadcast to the galaxy. But this message would be different from the desperate plea they had sent into space months ago. This would be a message of hope that would travel to every corner of known space. "To all who listen among the stars," Kythera began, her harmonic voice carrying across subspace frequencies that reached dozens of star systems. "We are the Zephyrians of Zephyria Prime, and we sing to you today not of ending but of beginning." Her message continued, telling the story of how humanity had crossed impossible distances to save strangers they had never met. She spoke of the courage it took to risk everything for people who could offer nothing in return. She described the miracles that became possible when 2 different species chose cooperation over fear. "We have learned that in the vast darkness between stars, we need not face our challenges alone. Kithra's voice resonated across the galaxy. When beings choose to help each other instead of competing, they can achieve things that seem impossible. They can move worlds, they can stop time, they can turn ending into beginning. The message was picked up by automated relay stations and retransmitted to the furthest reaches of explored space. Within hours, responses began arriving from civilizations that had remained hidden for centuries. Species that had never revealed themselves to others began cautiously reaching out, inspired by the story of humanity's selfless rescue mission. Captain Minho stood on the observation deck of his ship, watching the joint human-Zephyrian fleet prepare for departure. 12 vessels waited in formation, each one a perfect blend of the two species' technologies and philosophies. The crews were mixed as well, with humans and Zephyrians working side by side as equals. "Ready for departure, Captain," reported Communications Officer Bei Su-jin, who had learned to speak fluent Zephyrian and now served as the fleet's primary translator. Minho nodded, looking out at the stars ahead. Somewhere among those distant suns, other civilizations might be facing extinction, war, or disasters beyond their ability to handle alone, but they wouldn't have to face those challenges by themselves anymore. "All ships begin jump sequence," Minho ordered. "Let's go show the galaxy that no one has to suffer alone." The joint fleet disappeared into folded space-time, carrying with them the promise that help would always come to those who needed it. Behind them, Zephyria Prime continued its ancient dance around its new sun, now home to two species who had learned that the greatest strength in the universe was the willingness to extend a hand to those in need. In the years that followed, the Human-Zephyrian Alliance would become legendary across the galaxy. They rescued dying worlds, stopped wars between ancient enemies, and brought hope to civilizations that had given up on tomorrow. But it all began with a simple choice. When strangers cried out for help across the void, humanity decided to answer.